More exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. He was awarded many titles, but she became the only one who saw him as a simple man, with his weaknesses and desires. And she gave him the most precious gift in the world. She gave him her friendship. And he will do anything to make the friendship grow into something more. Chapter 7. Enjoy watching. Chapter 7 Slime Princess. Uzumaki, you have to help me. Out of breath, Sasuke landed in front of the veranda of his home, constantly looking around hauntedly. Naruto raised her eyebrows in surprise. She helped comb the wet hair of the older Uchiha who had just gotten out of the shower. Itachi closed his eyes and was quietly thrilled with pleasure. What happened, team? Naruto continued her work, carefully separating the heavy, smooth strands and massaging her scalp. Sakura. Sasuke made wide eyes and sat down next to them. She decided that I suffered greatly during the battle and now asks me all the time how I'm feeling. Even worse, she feeds me lunches. Even worse, she cooks them herself. The guy shuddered. Ototo, the girl takes care of you, looks after you, Itachi said softly. And then he received a light blow to the head with a comb. Don't mock your brother, Naruto said instructively. Imagine if Sakura was running after you. I don't need such happiness. The elder Uchiha shuddered. Sasuke chuckled maliciously, to which his brother showed him his fist. Of course, he could have flicked his forehead, but then he would have had to move away from Naruto and interrupt the massage session. It will click later. Much later. Itachi closed his eyes again. Actually, I was looking for you, team. Naruto began to tie her hair into a low ponytail. They want to choose Tsunade as the next Hokage Senju. The godfather offers to go with him in search of the Sannin. What do I have to do with it, Dobe? I need to get into the hospital and get Lee's medical record to show it to Tsunade. The doctors can't do anything anyway. And for this? The Uchiha pushed her. And for this I will take you with me. Can you imagine at least 2 weeks without Sakura? Father will not agree. Itachi intervened. Now the elders are afraid that other villages might take advantage of the lack of leadership and attack, so practically no one is allowed outside the leaf. Even missions stopped for a while, leaving only the most urgent and important ones. Sasuke sank dejectedly. He would like to travel in the company of the legendary Sannin and his best friend. I will help you anyway, Naruto. Convince Tsunade-san to come and help Lee. He nodded decisively, brushing off his regrets. He will still have time to walk around outside of Konoha when they have Hokage again. Well, the girl drawled. Actually, I already agreed with Fugaku-san, he's letting you go. And the elders were convinced by Ero-sanin. Something about the power of our common conviction, which will help return Tsunade to the village. Sasuke couldn't believe his ears. He smiled widely. I'm getting ready, he shouted, already running away. Get ready, Dobe, we are going to rob the Konoha hospital tonight. Date Bayo. Naruto laughed, burying her face in Itachi's back. Itachi's mother finished weaving flowers into the intricate hairstyle at the back of the girl's head. Okay, it's all over now. Did you prepare a gift, or did you and Sasuke buy 1 for 2 again? Everyone has their own mom. Sasuke entered the room. His eyes widened as Naruto turned around. Dobe, are you a girl? Sasuke! Mikoto exclaimed indignantly. Sorry, Mom. The Uchiha apologized, although his eyes sparkled with mischief. Naruto laughed quietly, covering her mouth with her hand. The woman waved her hand at her son. She had already come to terms with such a relationship between her partners. I didn't even intend to correct them. When are you leaving? She asked instead. Right away, as soon as we celebrate Itachi's birthday. Tomorrow morning. Naruto stood up and bowed. Thank you for your concern, Mikoto-san. The woman dressed her in a simple blue dress and made an elaborate hairstyle at the back of her head, weaving flowers into her silky, heavy strands. Naruto seemed like a princess to herself. However, in some ways she was the Haim of her clan. With all this hassle and battles, They almost forgot about the eldest Uchiha's birthday. Fortunately, Naruto prepared the gift in advance. All clan heads showed their respect and congratulations by sending formal gifts with written messages. Clan members busy rebuilding the village congratulated him informally when they met him or passed by. Everyone was not in the mood for large-scale celebrations, at least for now. Therefore, in the evening, only those whom Itachi wished to see personally gathered in Fugaku's house. The parents themselves, of course, Kagami and Shisui, Naruto and Sasuke, a modest list, but Itachi felt happy. For his sake, Naruto and Mikoto spent the whole day in the kitchen, not letting anyone in, forbidding anyone to peek. They even put a barrier against the curious black eyes of the younger Uchiha, spying for his brother's best friend. Their surprise was a success. In addition to traditional dishes, the table was decorated with dangos of all sizes, with all kinds of sauces. Fugaku and Kagami looked at each other, and could hardly contain their laughter. There was no one in the Uchiha clan who did not know about the heir's reverent love for this sweetness, so the relatives did not begin to philosophize and invent who knows what. The entire corner of Itachi's bedroom was occupied by boxes, bags, and cartons of dango from Tuchi's confectionery. They were already occupying the center. After eating, everyone went out into the garden with drinks. Kagami the Uchiha took out a thin pipe and lit it. And under the canopy of the trees, the words of a legend as old as the world itself flowed among the grasses. They curled and rose into the sky along with a light, translucent tobacco smoke. They drifted in the breeze, ringing bell flowers. They intertwined with the dark purple skies after the recent sunset, and seemed as natural as the nature itself around. Soon Fugaku joined him. Mikoto sat down next to her husband, and he hugged her, tucking a plucked flower behind her ear. Behind the trunk, with his back to his father, Shisui took a nap, falling asleep to the rhythmic sound of word beads. And above the narrator's head, on a wide branch, Sasuke lay down. Kagami was stringing beads, creating new, bright, colorful rosaries of another, long-forgotten story. Itachi sat down with tea on the veranda. After all the commotion, he wanted to be alone for a while. "This is the best birthday ever," he said quietly in time with the light steps behind him. Naruto knelt down next to him, drying her hands. She wanted to wash the dishes and managed to insist on her own, convincing Mikoto that she could do it in no time. After all, there is such a useful technique as shadow cloning. Even despite the dango? The girl grinned slyly. Itachi snorted. Even despite the dango, he confirmed. And it's good that you managed to delay going out in search of Tsunade. Naruto turned her face to the night wind. I asked my godfather to postpone the trip. I wanted to personally present the gift. A small box awkwardly wrapped in plain blue paper with a red ribbon across it. It contained a pendant, a thin chain and 3 flat rings located at an equal distance from each other. The metal thread seemed to be interrupted and continued between them. The one on the far right is for storing weapons. The other side is for technicians. Well, in the center for chakra reserves. The seals are not very spacious, it just so happens, Datebao. The girl laughed embarrassedly, running her hand into the hair at the back of her head and almost destroying her hair. Itachi immediately put on the chain and checked the seals. Everything worked perfectly. My heart trembled and my chest felt warm. Uzumaki took care of him as best she could. Thank you, Naru. He hugged her. A good end to a good day. So they sat, listening to Kagami's stories and watching the stars slowly flare up in the sky. Naruto dozed off and lay down on his lap. Itachi slowly unraveled his hair, took out the flowers and placed them on the warm boards nearby. The moon silvered the girl's features and lay striped shadows on her cheeks. He enjoyed the warmth of his personal whirlpool. It smelled of cherries and the sea. And the sun. In the first city they went to a holiday. You can't start searching without a good mood, Jiraiya declared. And for it to appear, you need to rest properly. And he rushed off for inspiration, leaving the guys alone. Old pervert Datebao. Uzumaki shook her head. And what will you do? How can we find Tsunade? Sasuke handed his friend a stick with fried squid. He has a photograph. I took 2 more from the archive. The girl waved her off. We'll ask what else, Datebeo? They asked. While Jiraiya was missing at hot springs and entertainment events, the guys carefully surveyed all the gambling establishments and taverns in search of a Sannin. Naruto sighed and looked at the setting sun. This was their 3rd city in a week since leaving Konoha. Tsunade Senju seemed to have disappeared into the ground. No one has heard of the woman nicknamed the legendary loser. Jiraiya told in detail all the ins and outs of his old friend. She is over 50 years old, but uses special techniques to look younger. A talented doctor, a famous shinobi, who was glorified by the power of his blow. But she was never, ever lucky. Neither in games nor in love. What did he mean? Jiraiya remained silent, only his gaze became melancholy, like that of a beaten puppy. He and Sasuke always met in the evenings in such clearings, where they could relax after useless searches or practice. The channels no longer blazed with fire, as they had at first, and the skin no longer suffered from chakra burns. 3 months had passed since Kurama first told her about her father's technique. And finally she succeeded. She couldn't count how many balloons filled with water and how many filled with air. She spent almost all the proceeds from the missions and the contract with the Uchiha on equipment for training. The house was practically filled with rubber. She extended her hand, concentrated, directed the chakra, twisted, concentrated, and strengthened. A small blue ball glowed in the palm of my hand. Deadly close combat technique. I wonder what will happen if you add the elements to it. It is imperative to calculate everything on paper. Or try it in practice. Sometime later, a little later, when he has fully mastered this level. She was interrupted by the sound of footsteps and ragged breathing. The girl scattered the ball. I didn't want to show off my technology just yet, even in front of a friend. Too many questions may arise. She trusted Sasuke, but didn't trust the others. And I didn't want to put my friend in danger. Too few people know who her parents are. There's no point in bringing up the past. Not now. A happy Uchiha flew into the clearing. Naruto jumped. Sad, serious thoughts were forgotten. Learned something. Yes, Dobe. By chance I met a man who was screwed over by the loser. He heard her say that she wanted to get even in Tanzaku. So what are we waiting for, Datebeo? Let's go wake up the pervert. Jiraiya was not at all happy when a bucket of ice water fell on him in the middle of the night. But the guys didn't even think about asking his opinion. They forced the man to change clothes, pay for the room, and dragged him along to Tanzaku. For her age, Tsunade looked even too young. And very, very drunk. While Sasuke looked stunned at the curvy brown-eyed girl with 2 low ponytails, who, according to the dossier, was 55 years old, and Jiraiya was drinking with her, Naruto did not just look, she saw. Princess Senju almost broke down and retreated into herself. At the very bottom of her eyes, doom and emptiness were frozen. She was in pain, too painful, and she tried to forget, to leave, so as not to see, not to feel, not to remember. Being Hokage is too stupid a game. She's not for me. Neither money nor power, nothing matters compared to life. The 4th became Hokage and died young. The 3rd, where did he go? He took on something that was beyond his strength. These words poured out all the bitterness of the life she had lived, all her disappointment. Don't you dare! Naruto quietly hit the table with her fists and stubbornly looked into the woman's eyes. Don't you dare talk about the 3rd like that! She did not raise her voice, spoke quietly, but everyone heard her. Perhaps the old man was not the best person and ruler, but he loved Konoha. Just as we love her. She looked around at her companions. Sasuke nodded in support. My friends live in Konoha, people who have become my family. And I want to become stronger so that I can protect them and make Leaf better, make it the best village in the world. Tsunade drained the cup with a sip and looked intently at the girl. Naruto held this gaze, although it seemed that the frost went to her bones. Big words for a little thing like you. The woman chuckled. But are you determined enough to fulfill your dream? Will you be able to go all the way to the end and not give up? Don't die on the battlefield like a consumable item? My will is strong, stronger than yours, Tsunade Heim. Sannin jumped up. Are you challenging me? Naruto followed suit. Face to face, eye-to-eye. Jiraiya groaned muffledly. Tsunade's assistant Shizen trembled, clutching the Tun-Tun pig to her. And only Sasuke, accustomed to his friend's antics, continued to calmly sip the green tea brought by the efficient staff. But Naruto knew that he was keeping his fingers close to his pouch, ready to launch a deadly attack at any moment. What if so? She raised her eyebrows. Or is loser so legendary that she is afraid of losing to a child date bail? Okay. Tsunade suddenly calmed down, sat down, unexpectedly sober, with a challenge in her eyes. I propose a dispute. I stake my necklace, and you stake the position of Hokage. In a week you must learn the technique of the fourth Hokage Rasengan. If you win, I'll go with you and become Hokage, and I'll also give you a necklace. If not, don't blame me, you'll have to come back with nothing. She leaned forward and leaned her hands on the table. Prove to me your determination and will. Prove that you can make the village better. Madam, Shizen gasped. But this necklace, it's not worth it, you value it so much. There were only 2 similar copies in the world, and both were incredibly expensive. Compressed chakra of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, who was nicknamed the god of the shinobi world. He gave it the appearance of a greenish stone and gave it to his descendants. One necklace was lost over the years. But that's not why the decoration was special to Tsunade. I agree. Naruto nodded. I'm going to win date bail. In the evening, when the girl came out of the shower, drying her wet hair, there was a knock on the door of her room. Tsunade's assistant stood on the threshold. Kato-san? The girl was surprised. Come on in, sit down. She poured the tea and handed the cup to the clearly upset woman. Naruto, please give up this argument. Shizen began, without raising her eyes, clutching her cup. This necklace is a dear memory for the lady. The only thing she had left of the people she loved. Then why did she put him on the line? The woman sighed heavily. Lady Tsunade wasn't always like this. She has changed a lot. A burning sip. This necklace was a gift, first to my brother, then to my uncle. They both died. And the decoration is all that the lady has left as a keepsake. So please don't take it away from her. Naruto clenched her fists and looked gloomily at her interlocutor. I never give up or retreat, I always go to the end. And I never go back on my words, date bail. Shizen flushed and left, slamming the door loudly. And Naruto quickly changed her clothes and flew out the window. She still needed to talk to someone. She found Tsunade sitting on the gate at the entrance to Tanzaku. She was kept company by a bottle of sake and a small cup, which she constantly brought to her mouth. A blush was already burning on her cheeks, which even the piercing wind could not cool down. But despite the amount of drink, she looked evenly and confidently when Naruto sat down opposite. The subject of the dispute was the green stone pendant, the necklace of the first Hokage, which now reminded the girl of a collar for a great Sannin, behind which stretched a long chain of dark memories and shadows of the past that would not let the woman go. Did Shizen talk to you? The Sannin correctly assessed the expression on her face. Did you come to say that you give up and won't fight me? I never go back on my words, date bail. Naruto grinned. I came to ask why you are trying to get rid of the necklace, but it comes back to you. Tsunade clenched the pendant in her fist, and Naruto turned away, looking at the road leading into the city. From early childhood I was hated in the village, she began quietly. The woman blinked in surprise, relaxed, and leaned back against the pillar. Yes, and how can you love a demon, date bail? But there are many good people in Konoha. Maybe not all, but a lot. Only as I grew older did I understand this. The Jonins who fed me, the Anbu, who tactfully did not notice this. My first teacher who scolded me in front of everyone in the class, but the first one who rushed to my aid when I was in trouble. The owner of the ramen shop and the owner of the pastry shop, who didn't care whether I was a demon or not, they were always happy to see me, even if I came just for the sake of it. The doctor who always treated me blew on my bruised knees and taught me how to cook, and stroked my head. There are many of them, such people. And I want to be like them. I have family and friends. There are those for whom I will rip my veins and break my bones to protect them. And make our common home leaf village better. Sannin sighed and twirled the cup of sake between her fingers. I gave Nawaki a necklace. And she kissed him. For good luck. A month later he died during an attack on List. I didn't have time to do anything. After that, she demanded that doctors be recruited into the units. To increase the survival rate of missions and their successful completion. I was supported by a then unknown young man, Kato Dan. His sister died, and he wanted to prevent any more deaths. He considered all of Konoha to be his family, his home. And I wanted to make it better. I gave him a necklace. And she kissed him. For good luck. He was dying in my arms. All my medical ninja skills were useless. From somewhere she took out another cup, poured sake into it, and handed it to the girl. It looks like we're having a night of revelations tonight. She chuckled, saluting. Naruto accepted, took a tiny sip, and winced. Don't know how to drink? The Sannin joked her kindly. Well, first of all, I'm underage, the girl answered pedantically, adjusting her invisible glasses on her nose. And secondly, a drunken Uzumaki is a natural disaster on a local scale, because it blows our heads off at once. I've already checked. The medic giggled. Am I not the first to get you drunk? Grandfather. Naruto winced. Just the memories made my head hurt. Somewhere he heard that alcohol does not affect Uzumaki. I decided to try it on me. And how? It works, but is quickly neutralized due to the physiological characteristics of the tenacious clan. But in that short period of intoxication we can do something like this. The girl made big eyes. They both giggled. Tsunade drank another cup and took out a second bottle. And you won't read me lectures and morals like Shizen? She raised an eyebrow. What for? Naruto shrugged. You are an adult, independent woman, you have your own head on your shoulders. I think you yourself understand that with your indifference, your words and ridicule, you are betraying the dream of dear people. And you suffer from it. But you can't do it any other way, you're scared to believe again, because this blind faith has already taken your loved ones away from you. It is difficult to understand how a woman feels, but you just have to imagine that she has lost Itachi or Sasuke, and everything falls into place. Fear, doubt, torment of endless guilt. Because I didn't have time, I didn't do it, but I could have, but I didn't come here for that, Datebao. The girl took out a medical card from the press. Something happened to my friend. Our doctors cannot help him. They moved to the middle of the crossbar and bent over the papers together. Naruto shone a powerful flashlight while the woman read the lines of prescriptions, operations performed and test results. The chances are 50-50. The doctor concluded, pulling away. And this is only according to your data, everything could have already become worse. Naruto tried hard to push away the thought that Lee's condition had worsened during her absence. She believed in her friend, in his determination and strength. That's why I was in a hurry to bring a doctor, until Lee finally lost heart and gave up his dream. She waved a portion of sake, then another, her head began to buzz and spin, and she became pleasantly light. With difficulty, Naruto managed to concentrate. Tsunade looked at her sarcastically. Are you really giving up? Uzumaki shook her head and took out her publications on this problem. Everything she calculated and came up with, based on the call of the Senju princess. And she jumped down. I'm going to sleep. I think I've had enough already. Jiraiya, raising an eyebrow, looked skeptically at the picturesque picture that opened to him. He wanted to start explaining the Rasengan to the girl, and then. Naruto was lying on Sasuke's lap, sipping ice water from a steamed jug through a straw. The guy covered the girl's sore eyes with his palm. Seeing the Sannin, he shrugged. Uzumaki doesn't know how to drink at all. You know, I have a bad feeling, Datebao. Naruto raised her head. The week given to Tsunade to master the technique was soon ending. The friends spent all this time in a small clearing near Tanzaku. Sitting at different ends of it, they practiced their own techniques. The Uchiha tried to reduce the time it took to create a Chidori. Naruto recalled the battle cannons with the fan. No one mentioned the dispute. Naruto had no doubt about her victory, she just needed to give the Sannin time to think, to rethink her position. She knew Jiraiya would not leave his old partner alone, he would read morals and lectures until he achieved results. It doesn't matter which one. And the Uchiha simply believed in his friend, that she had some kind of plan. HM? The friend activated his Sharingan and looked around. The wind, as usual, rustled in the crowns of the trees growing around, and ran like a wave through the grasses and flowers. A spring gurgled from the ground nearby. But today these sounds seemed frightening to the Uzumaki. Something has to happen. Your intuition is amazing, Naruto. The friends turned around sharply. Kabuto stood on a tree branch in the company of some strange man with blue skin and gill slits under his eyes. A huge bandaged sword peeked out from behind his shoulders. Both were wearing strange black cloaks with red clouds. The men jumped down and came almost close. Kabuto's companion bared his teeth, showing sharp, shark-like teeth. Swordsman of the Mist. Sasuke didn't know, and no one except her saw on that very first mission how Zabuza gripped the kunai given by the girl with his teeth. They were triangular and sharp, although not as large as those of this blue-skinned one. Naruto, you better come with us voluntarily. Kabuto adjusted his glasses. Yes? The girl jumped back and took out a fan. Catch me if you can. Sasuke, run! Call for help. The friend nodded and understood perfectly. Naruto didn't ask for help, she wanted to separate the opponents. For some reason, she needed to take the swordsman away from the clearing. You shouldn't have sent your friend away. He has no chance against Kisame. We'll see about that later, Datebao. Naruto sent a whirlwind of air at the enemy. Kabuto turned out to be a very dexterous, skilled opponent. He dodged almost all attacks and tried to go on the offensive. A few battle pills doubled his reserve. Never Kaguya, don't give up, yes. Naruto dodged his throws, jumped and galloped through the trees, pronouncing each syllable as she exhaled. Very in vain, Naruto, very in vain. Kabuto did not give her a second of respite, did not let her go far from him, and kept closing the distance. Naruto had to constantly block his blows with a folded tezen, destroy attacks by passing his chakra through the fan. She couldn't even reach the bag that contained the barrier seals. And it's unlikely that Kabuto would have allowed her to pull off the same trick as with Niji. We had to stall for time in the hope that someone would notice the surge of chakra and hear the Chidori singing Sasuke will come to the rescue. The girl hissed as her arms, shrouded in sharp chakra, damaged her arm muscles. Kabuto kicked the tezen away, walked up to her, and almost put his hand on the girl's cheek. Do you know why I was sent after you, Naruto? The organization needs you alive and more or less unharmed. And I can cut you into pieces and still keep you alive. The wounds healed slowly, but healed under the influence of chakra karama. Several shadow clones created earlier distracted the medic. And then the earth began to crack and began to collapse, as if during an earthquake. Tsunade appeared in the clearing Senju. Sasuke! Uzumaki turned to her. Jiraiya went to help him. Senju waved it off, looking intently at the figure in a black cloak. One of the trinity of Sanins, how interesting! Kabuto practically hissed. He took out his cards, which he boasted about during the exam, and read something on one. And he rushed forward. A medic and afraid of blood. Sorry sight. Tsunade let him get closer, exposing her chest to the blow, from which she suffocated. But at the same time she managed to strike ironing on the neck. He flew away, paralyzed. He looked with horror at the hands and feet that refused to obey their master. How are you? Tsunade flew up to the girl and enveloped the wounds with medical chakra. What did you do with him? Naruto didn't notice how she addressed the woman first name, absorbed in the spectacle behind her. Kabuto slowly rose, his bones crunched, his limbs twitched chaotically, as if in a seizure. The brain, giving a command to the nerves, gives a weak electrical impulse. I just created a short circuit, the woman hissed. The wounds on her hands were much deeper than she thought. Kabuto damaged not only the ligaments, but also the muscles and tendons, almost completely paralyzing the girl's arms. Meanwhile, the doctor dealt with his injury. Well, it's a wonderful technique, he almost sincerely admired. And he bared his teeth. It's just painfully simple. I found a way to neutralize it. And I know how to defeat you. He rushed forward, but instead of striking the woman, he pierced his own palm. Tsunade froze, shaking uncontrollably. And in the eyes there is horror, to the point of nausea. Kabuto's next move cut her shoulder, but the Sannin didn't seem to notice, preoccupied with her own fear. Come to your senses, Datebao! Naruto screamed. The fox almost managed it, there was just a little bit left. Her own powerlessness was killing her. It won't work, Naruto. Kabuto shook his head. She began to be afraid of blood ever since Nawaki and Dan died. She cannot cure anyone, she cannot help anyone. Hearing the names of her relatives, Tsunade jerked as if from a blow. Her face was distorted in pain, she grabbed the pendant on her neck and squeezed it. Kabuto walked up and raised his chakra blade for the final, decisive blow. At the same moment, Naruto felt her hands with relief. And she rushed forward, across the street. The blade dug into his left shoulder, going almost to the bone. The girl hissed through clenched teeth. Don't you dare give up! She almost spat out towards the motionless Senju. I believe in you! And they believed too, Datebao. Now she had to protect not only herself, but also the Sannin immobilized by her horror. She was inferior to Kabuto in speed, but superior in preparation. Uchiha clan techniques. She and the man clashed hands, he pulled her palms away from his ribs, she ducked at the very last moment as the blade flashed over her head. Once she even received a kick in the stomach, but she grabbed the leg and pulled the enemy towards her. The blade entered painfully into her side, and she suffocated from the fire that pierced her body. But she managed to hold him next to her with one hand. Moving her right one to the side, she began to concentrate her chakra. You need to demonstrate to Tsunade your undoubted win. They hit at the same time. The ball of compressed chakra smoothly fit into Kabuto's stomach, throwing him a considerable distance. At that same second, Naruto felt a burning, tearing pain in her heart. She grabbed her chest with her hands and tried to inhale, but the air did not go into her lungs, it got stuck somewhere in her throat. My vision blurred and then faded into soft blackness. She no longer felt the impact on the ground. Nobody knew, but every night, again and again, she saw them in her dreams. I saw how my restless brother graduated from the academy, how he proudly showed her his bandage. Yes, he is an adult, already a real shinobi. In the dream, she smiled and kissed his forehead. For good luck. Warm lilac eyes that contain her. Without embellishments and titles, without beautiful speeches and titles. Just a female Tsunade. A disheveled blonde with kissed lips and eyes burning with passion. In his eyes, she is not for everyone. Only for him, the only one. Beloved by him, loving him. There is nothing worse than experiencing the death of a loved one. And although the life of a shinobi is a constant game with death, Tsunade could not accept this. Her world shattered into pieces when they were gone. Each time the blood reminded her of the bloody, mutilated body of her younger brother, his brown, disheveled hair visible from under the sheet. Again the woman heard her muffled sobs there, in the dark corridor, felt the wet wall under her shoulder and covered her mouth so that hold back the screams. Along with the blood, cold, disgusting rain flowed down her face. And thin lips begged to be saved. He did not want to die, but he had not yet done so much for the village, which he sincerely loved. The rain fell on his face in slanting streams, washing away his blood. And under the gray drops, my beloved lilac eyes faded. Tsunade cried and went crazy along with the rain. Every time I saw blood. But today something has changed. There was a ringing voice in her ears, telling her that she believed in her, in Tsunade. Senju. And under this voice, smiling Navaki and Dan left her. Their dream still lives on. In this girl and in other children like her, for whom Konoha is their home, who live for the bright future of the village. Tsunade smiled, not noticing the tears streaming down her face. The necklace stopped pressing on her chest. It no longer weighed a ton. Naruto, where have you been before? A light breeze touched the center of her forehead, where the seal stood. It was as if she had been kissed. For good luck. Her hands stopped shaking. Tsunade woke up when Naruto's body fell on the grass in front of her. Blood was gushing from a laceration on her side, and the sleeve of her dress was already wet from a cut on her shoulder. The first thing the woman did was check her pulse. The heart practically did not beat. The area of blood vessels around it was damaged by the Kabuto technique. Tsunade easily cut the dress from the neck to the waist, revealing tan skin covered with a network of small cuts. Med chakra rushed inside, healing the damage, but Tsunade, with all her talent, did not have time. Come on, hold on. Don't you dare die, she hissed. She was not distracted even by Kabuto, who had come to his senses, and who, using the technique of rapid regeneration, healed the damage from the Rasengan. The woman made her choice. Even if she has to die for him. He was attacked by Shizen, who found them. With poison needles, she tried to keep the enemy away from her mentor. The ground under his feet turned into a marshy swamp. It was Jiraiya who returned with Sasuke on his shoulder. It seems I'm on time. He smiled. His gaze darted to the motionless Naruto. The Sannin turned pale. The heart beat less and less under the palm, until it stopped completely. Tsunade couldn't believe her eyes and put her ear to her chest. No, there was no pulse. Don't you dare die, she hissed and again directed her medical chakra. Jiraiya and Shizen covered her, although Kabuto had already damaged the ligaments in his assistant's leg. But the Sannin methodically, purposefully tried to kill the enemy. He didn't get distracted by his usual jokes and didn't give in. And such Jiraiya was scary. The man walked towards his goal literally straight ahead. It was this man who at one time became the legendary Sannin. Tsunade did not stop trying to save Naruto. It seemed to her that she herself had stopped breathing. The heart fluttered once, twice. On the third, the girl sighed lightly and opened her dull eyes. I won, Bie-chan. She smiled weakly and touched the necklace. She looked up at the doctor. I told you, I believe in you, Date-Bao. And she lost consciousness again. Tsunade straightened up. For the first time in recent years, she again felt like a real Sannin, a fighter, a shinobi, full of strength. Shizen, look after her. At the same time, all three pronounced the summoning formula. Katsuyu, a giant slug, Gamabunta, a huge toad covered in scars and with a pipe. And the beige snake, Hoshi, is the same age as Orochimaru's main summon, Manda, although not as strong as him, but still cunning and dexterous. And poisonous. Dangerous. So Orochimaru gave you his call. Jiraiya noted the obvious. Yes, I did just before my death. Kabuto burst into a smile. Tsunade looked at her old friend and raised an eyebrow. He nodded. Yakushi did not take into account only one thing. The Sannins were used to fighting in an alliance, and knew each other like crazy. For so many years, they knew how to combine their techniques and complement their attacks. They acted as one. The small slug separated from Katsuyu and crawled towards Naruto and Shizen. Collect natural chakra, heal remaining damage. Gamabunta spat a stream of oil towards Hoshi, which Jiraiya set on fire. Katsuyu broke up into 1,000 small slugs, which in a crowd fell on the snake's tail, holding it back. The toad from the Gama family threw his blade to Tsunade, and she pinned Hoshi to the ground, plunging it right into her neck. You are wounded and won't last long. He threw towards Tsunade. Do you think so, boy? The woman inquired almost affectionately. Folded the seals. Dark seal patterns ran across his face, and steam of evaporating chakra came from the wounds. And soon there was no trace left of the damage. Cellular restoration technique. It's not just your teacher who has been exploring new techniques in recent years. I can create new cells and send them throughout the body, healing literally any damage. It was not for nothing that Kabuto was considered a talented shinobi. He quickly calculated the development of the situation and his chances of winning. Without a partner, against two angry Sanins, one of them a medic above his class. Their calls are still active, while his head cannot be lifted from the ground, pinned by the tanto. He chose to retreat. The effect of the cellular restoration technique has ceased. Tsunade felt her true age inevitably return. The skin became dry, thinned, became covered with age spots, wrinkles appeared on the face, and the hair turned gray. Mistress! Shizen twitched worriedly. It's not worth it, Tsunade shook her head, looking at the sleeping Naruto. I do not regret anything. Once I get some rest, I can use the rejuvenation technique. Better tell me what's wrong with the guy. She turned to Jiraiya. Katsuyu crawled almost entirely onto Sasuke, covering him from head to toe with her soft, swaying body. I don't know what that swordsman told him, but the guy's Sharingan awakened. 3 volumes. He told me that Naruto has already been killed. Came from under Katsuyu. Like, they only need the 9-tailed demon that is inside her. The girl herself is unnecessary. The Uchiha winced, but sat up on his own. The slug went back to its home plane with a quiet bang. Tsunade sat down next to the girl and stroked her disheveled golden hair. And in the end, it all comes down to Uzumaki again. She smiled. The men behind her were silent. An incomprehensible organization, new unknown enemies. New problems may not only be for Konoha, since they are hunting for the bijou. But for now, their demon is safe, sleeping peacefully on the grass near Tanzaku. What did you decide, Tsunade? Jiraiya was the first to break the silence. The woman stood up and straightened up proudly. Isn't it already clear? I lost. So it's time to forget about the name. From now on, I am the 5th Hokage. She hung the necklace around the girl's neck. I will believe in you, as you believed in me. She had no regrets in her heart. Jiraiya betrayed you. Naruto looked at Tsunade, as pleased as Thor had eaten too much sour cream, sitting on the edge of the laboratory table and dangling her legs. Immediately upon returning to Konoha, after taking the oath, Senju began to actively understand the neglected affairs of the village, held a Jounin council, and met with the Council of Clans. Fugaku-san was extremely pleased with his results. And for some reason she quarreled with the elders and Danzo, but here Uzumaki did not go into details. Upon arrival, the doctor performed Lee's operation. Together with Naruto, they finalized the girl's calculations. Tsunade explained in detail what was possible, what was not, and why. For the operation to be successful, it was necessary to force all cells to regenerate simultaneously, in the same proportion and speed. One person simply could not withstand such a load, and hiring assistants with whom you still cannot synchronize the work meant death or disability for the patient. But why bother one medic when there is such a wonderful call as Katsuyu? In fact, there is only one slug on her plane, all small, large copies. All this is Katsuyu, a product of one mind, one creature. And they work harmoniously. 6 small slugs occupied the operating table. 4 controlled the heartbeat, the flow of chakra, cell regeneration, and the healing of wounds after fragments pulled out of the spinal nerve. Another 1 collected and transmitted Sen chakra, well, and the 6th one was on hand, a spare one, so to speak. He was sitting in Naruto's arms, which Senju allowed to the operating room. In extreme cases, the fox's chakra could easily pick up and hold Lee for a couple of seconds. At the end, the woman wearily admitted that she was amazed how Lee could even move with such injuries. The operation was successful. Guy was ready to pray for the Sannin. And the Hokage began sending troops to clean up sound. Leaving Orochimaru's lair with all his experiments unattended was extremely dangerous. Even Kabuto couldn't clean everything up, which means we need to protect ourselves at least from this side. Uzumaki the Sannin was pushed where she belonged in the Konoha hospital. Now Naruto studied officially, systematically, comprehending the intricacies of the ironing craft. They managed to meet with Senju only at night. Both were so loaded that they crawled home in a half-dead state. And after a couple of hours they crawled back to work. But Tsunade always found an hour or two to teach Uzumaki special techniques and how to work with medical seals. Most often, the Sannin spent her lunch break in the hospital laboratory, where Naruto prepared mixtures, infusions, extracts, conducted comparative tests, and did full examinations. The woman climbed onto the table, chewing a bun, pointing out mistakes, shortcomings, or explaining how it could be done better, faster, and less energy-consuming. What exactly? Naruto carefully clarified, checking the stopwatch. Another ointment was boiling and bubbling on the fire, which had to be cooled before use. You didn't train Rasengan, you didn't start the Tanzaku technique at all. Pointed her finger at her with a triumphant look. You knew him in advance. And this is not entirely fair. In your opinion, asking a genin a technique that an adult, the Hokage, took 3 years to learn, is the height of honesty? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Tsunade flushed and turned away offended, like a small child. She behaved this way only with the girl alone. She relaxed, taking on the difficult position of Hokage within the walls of the laboratory. If you want, I can return the necklace to you, Datebao, Naruto offered. The green pendant swayed as she removed the ointment from the heat. No. The woman shook her head and smiled. I asked you to demonstrate your determination. You've proven that you can make Leaf better. The necklace is rightfully yours. That's great, Datebao. The girl was happy. I'm already used to it. Oh, you! Senju swung a rice cake at her. Their friendly squabble was interrupted by a knock on the door. The women froze when the doors slid aside with a roar, and a young laboratory assistant burst into the room. Tsunade-sama, the detachment you sent to Sound was brought there. The friends looked at each other. Brought? The best jonin and chunin that the village could spare without compromising its safety in the current situation went to Sound. Shirane Ginma, Namishi Rado, Kato Shizen, led by Itachi Uchiha. They were later joined by Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Shursui, who had their own mission nearby. The latter literally dragged the bodies of the detachment on themselves. The shinobi were breathing with difficulty, being in an unconscious state. Naruto looked at the pale Itachi in horror, her breath caught, and her heart seemed to break. It shouldn't be this way. Itachi is a genius, the most powerful shinobi of the Leaf Village. He just can't die. Naruto! Tsunade's commanding shout brought the girl to her senses. Senju looked sternly, demandingly. Take care of Itachi. And remember, you are an ironin of the village hidden in the leaves. You have no right to have a personal relationship with your patient. Got it, Bie-chan Datebao. Uzumaki sighed several times, returning her thoughts to crystal clarity and confidence. She walked towards her dream for too long. She is a doctor, the life of it. The patient depended on her knowledge and skills. The others looked much worse than the older Uchiha. Wounds covered their bodies almost completely, and here and there fragments of broken bones were exposed. Tsunade and a group of assistants immediately went to the operating room. She had to supervise the treatment of several patients at once, leaving one for the student. With the help of 2 residents, Naruto transported Itachi to an empty room, placed him on a table, and began undressing him. The torn, dirty clothes went to the corner of the room, in a box. She had to be run through the analyzer to find out what attacked the Leaf Shinobi. Surprisingly, there was almost no damage to the Uchiha's body. Only a few bruises and minor scratches darkened the smooth, pale skin. But something did not allow him to come to his senses. Blood for analysis, quickly! Naruto commanded one of the assistants, meanwhile scanning the body. The pulse is weak, irregular, constantly erratic. The flow of blood and chakra is too uneven. The doctor took 2 portions, one for a detailed, later analysis, the other for a quick one, the results of which will be needed immediately. I ran it through a portable medical fuin. An unusual substance was found in his blood. Its nature is unknown, most likely one of Orochimaru's experiments, he reported. He took a closer look at the scroll and looked at the medic in bewilderment. Does it have chakra? Uzumaki nodded, taking the information into account. She healed the internal injuries, although Itachi will have to stay in the hospital for a while. All that remained was an incomprehensible substance. When you know what to look for, it is much easier to help the patient. You just need to rescan the body and circulation system more carefully to understand the type of chakra Itachi, and then find one that is different from her. Naruto moved her hands, shrouded in a greenish glow. Standard techniques didn't work. The poison seemed to elude her. Meanwhile, the body was fading away, its functions were being disrupted. Water, quickly! After making a nutrient solution, I cleansed the liver and lungs several times. Itachi arched in pain as a bubble of water filled with chakra was absorbed into his system. The assistants grabbed him and held him down along with Naruto. She pressed the guy, putting her hand on his chest, and the other continuing to cleanse the liver. This is definitely some kind of poison, and it's like it's alive, thinking, and eludes her all the time. As soon as it is discovered in one place, it quickly appears in another point of the body. And it harmed and burned out the circulation system, the vessels of the inner circle. In addition to the chase, we had to constantly patch up the damage caused by the poison. The seconds were counting. Itachi was getting worse and worse. Sweat ran down my forehead, my eyes burned, and one of the lab technicians ran a damp cloth over my skin. The girl blew out the wet strands, without taking her eyes off the patient. Naruto didn't notice the admiring glances of the assistants. She completely forgot about them until one of them fastened a ribbon with a microphone around her neck, putting a small transmitter in her ear. "Tsunade-sama wants to talk to you." He bowed briefly. Surprisingly, there was no time. The teacher's voice rang in her ear. "Naruto, is Itachi physically injured?" "Practically not, Bie-chan." The girl stuck out her tongue. "Well, come on, dear, come here to the doctor. She won't hurt you. Extensive bruising, minor internal bleeding, and 2 broken ribs. Another one has a crack. They are poisoned by an unknown poison. We cannot force it to leave the body. We are trying to find something in common, at least some clue. How are you?" Almost, come on, date Bayo." Naruto hissed. She almost laid her cheek on the patient's chest. She felt a piece of poison in the kidney, small, very tiny. If you find out the type of hostile chakra, it will be easier to neutralize it. "Yes, date Bayo, I caught it." Her eyes widened as she analyzed the captured piece of poison. The chakra evoked a close, almost familiar sensation of burning heat and had a painfully familiar aroma. "Bachan, are you listening to me?" "Yes." "What did you find?" "Chakra in poison Kyubi. It looks like Orochimaru has found a way to get himself a small amount. Most likely, even before I was born." Tsunade was silent for a moment. "Are you sure?" she finally asked. "In what, date Bayo?" Naruto wasn't distracted from her work. "The fact that it is a chakra Kyubi, yes. And the fact is that the serpent did not receive it from me. I used chakra Bijou once in his life, during the exam, in a battle against Hyuga. And Orochimaru suspiciously did not appear during the fox's attack on the village, although he could have taken advantage of it," the Sannin said thoughtfully. Uzumaki knew that their conversations were heard by all the doctors involved in the operations. "How are we going to fight it?" "I have one idea." "I don't know if it will work, date Bayo." The girl bit her lip. "But there are still no other options. He will die if immediate action is not taken." Her decision was based entirely on feelings. The piece of chakra was glad to get to her, did not struggle, did not burn. She reached for the seal, her inner demon chamber. One hand was enveloped in the familiar orange, boiling, bubbling energy. The assistants recoiled when scarlet eyes with a thin thread of pupil glanced at them. The girl ran her hands over the patient's body, the man wheezed, the demon's chakra left real burns. Biting her lip, Naruto enveloped her other hand in regular, medical chakra. Thanks to training with Sasuke on unification, she learned to purify her energy from demonic particles, filtering it before transferring it. But she had never done something like this at the same time before. The contrast tore her mind, melted her brain. It was like an exquisite act of sadism. With one hand she left wounds, with the other she immediately healed them. But it brought its benefits. Uzumaki felt the chakra in the poison reaching out to her, striving to return to her own. This is how small iron grains of sand stick to the magnet. Without the Ninetales chakra, the poison turned into a heavy sediment, which Naruto was able to neutralize easily, since she herself had not left the laboratory all last week, preparing the drugs needed for the hospital. Itachi's face relaxed, his body stopped arching in the invisible fire. The whole action took about 3 minutes. "I'll send you clones with demonic energy," Naruto wheezed tiredly into the microphone. "Only they will have to heal the damage immediately." "We'll manage," Tsunade snapped. With a pop, several girls appeared and rushed to the operating room to see the Sannin. To create them, Naruto used only an exclusively demon chakra, which Kurama generously shared. He also complained about the storm created in his inner world. She made sure that Itachi was transported to the ward, connected to equipment and IVs, and gave the mentor information about the usual component of the poison. Automatically, she untangled herself from the white surgical suit and fell heavily onto a miraculously discovered chair in the common corridor. The tired brain has only now begun to ask questions. Why did Tsunade give it to her Itachi, and not the same Shizen, for example? After all, Uchiha is the heir of the clan. If he died, the Hokage would have significant problems. But she still entrusted a serious operation to a dropout. Another lesson from her. The girl smiled bitterly and knowingly. She gave her someone who evokes strong emotions in her, whose death would be a blow to her. She gave it because she believed in her student. Because in another situation, Naruto would have been just as confused, but Senju would no longer be there. There would be no one to give her an encouraging and sobering kick. And the patient could die. After all, it was not in vain that the Sannin decided to contact her via microphone. She was ready to pick her up in case of failure. But she still believed, gave her a chance to cope on her own, to find a way out. And for that Naruto was grateful. She looked at her shaking hands, her fingers almost unbending. Fear, real horror for Itachi, awareness of the situation came with full force. I couldn't believe that he was lying in intensive care alive, and would soon come to his senses. There were too many impressions, the mind refused to accept new ones. "Uzumaki-san?" The girl raised her head and saw a medic rushing off with Tsunade. "Naruto." She shook her head. "But you, so what, Datebao?" A raised eyebrow. "How did the operation go?" "Successfully." He nodded happily. "Your clones helped us a lot." I'm glad." Uzumaki almost fell asleep. They took her by the arm, led her somewhere, sat her down on a chair again, and pressed a cup of hot tea into her palms. The wonderful smell of thyme touched my nose. After the second sip, the body deigned to wake up. Not only the Iranians who helped her and Tsunade gathered in the staff lounge, but also the others who were off duty. They set the table, laying out all their supplies and nest eggs, and now looked at the girl with interest. Evaluative, penetrating. At one time, Shizen whispered that not all executioners have as much meticulousness as representatives of the most humane profession. The Iranian in Konoha were a kind of closed community where outsiders were not allowed. With its own hierarchy, with its own, sometimes most incredible, goals. For them, the priority was human life, nothing else. For all the time she worked, Naruto was never able to become a part of this world. She felt that they were looking at her, sniffing her. And she wasn't going to break herself for the sake of other people's interests. Either they accept her as she is, or they don't accept her at all. At that moment, looking at the faces of those gathered, she realized she was recognized. "Tsunade has business in the Hokage Palace," explained the Ironin who brought her. "We wanted to find out about the poison. Never seen anything like it." He seemed to have intelligence. Picked up another doctor. Naruto took a sip and mechanically chewed the carefully placed cookie. Essentially, Biju are clots of energy endowed with their own consciousness, emotions, and feelings. In this, they are no different from people. They live, breathe, love or hate, sympathize, understand. And when a huge amount of chakra is released, the QB accumulates in one host, far from the fox himself, and she begins to develop the rudiments of intelligence. The simplest instincts, depending on the state of the kyubi at the time of its release. For example, now he is calm and even somewhat satisfied. Naruto knew that tomorrow this conversation would spread throughout the hospital. But that chakra was too evil. She wanted to kill, destroy, break. Therefore, I assumed that it accumulated during the fox's attack on Konoha. Somehow Orochimaru managed to combine this chakra and the most complex organic poison. Perhaps the technology of his damned seal was used for this, I don't know. This can only be clarified after extensive analysis, which, most likely, will be done by the Hokage herself. She thought for a while and was not disturbed. The girl shook herself and returned to the interrupted topic. Thus, the poison turned out to be semi-intelligent. He felt the healing energy and diligently hid from it. But as soon as the chakra sensed its owner, the fox, even if it was locked, it tried to return to its owner. Without her actions, poison broke up on components. Listen. Another nurse intervened. Is it true what they say about Jiraiya-san and Tsunade-sama? Why was he running from her? During the light, cheerful conversation about the adventures of the great Sannin and his escape from his fighting girlfriend, time flew by. Delicious tea, sweets, and warm company did their job. The doctors relaxed. Naruto was able to free herself only late in the evening, when it was already dark on the streets. The light in the Hokage's office was still on, and Tsunade's silhouette could be seen in the window. You know, she began when the girl closed the door behind her and activated the shields. All these years I thought what would have happened if I had not been personally interested in Dan's life. If I had thought like a doctor, didn't cry, didn't worry, would he have stayed alive or not? Instead, I listened to his last words. Naruto sat down on the sofa. He wouldn't have survived anyway, Bie-chan. She shook her head. Tsunade jumped up. Because I know you did your best. Despite everything. The woman nodded and put some papers away. I want to send another detachment to Sound Compound? Leaders Naruto Shikamaru and Sasuke Uchiha, they will pick up the rest. The guys are the only ones who received the title of Chunin. Why, Datebeo? Naruto knew that her mentor would not do anything for nothing. There's a reason for everything. First of all, I looked at the genin's attitude towards others, opponents and allies. I don't need rugged individualists who will leave the team at the first opportunity. At best, they will pull everything on themselves. At worst, they will ineptly distribute responsibilities and blame their colleagues for the inevitable failure. And Naruto. The woman looked a little guilty. I can't give you a title yet. I don't want to attract too much attention. I've already turned the elders and Danzo against me. What did you do, Bie-chan? I recognize you as my granddaughter and took you under my wing. The Sannin smiled. The girl jumped on the spot, squealed and rushed to the Hokage's neck. She laughed, but hugged the spontaneous girl. Then she pulled her back a little, smoothed her golden bangs and looked seriously straight into her eyes. Naruto, now you are the granddaughter of the Hokage. Remember this. Behave as befits the honorable granddaughter of Hokage-sama. She made an important face, clearly copying Ebisu, Konohamaru's teacher. Then she smiled widely. From now on, there is no one more important to me than you. Because you are my family, my closest person. Naruto nodded, closed her eyes, and pressed herself closer. Thank you, Bie-chan. They sat hugging for a while, but then Tsunade sent the girl back to the sofa. The detachment will leave as soon as the victims come to their senses and give me a report on what happened. We must be prepared for the unexpected. Naruto, you will be included in the squad without fail. And not only as a full-time medic, but also as a full-fledged operative. You and Sasuke will become the striking force, the rest are obliged to take you to Orochimaru's hideout at any cost. He is an expert in seals and genjutsu, which is why there is such a balance of power. I understand, Datebeo. The woman folded her arms across her chest. Now about something else. What did you manage to understand from the analysis of the Uchiha's condition? Naruto bit her lip and fiddled with the end of her braid, her gaze wandering around the room as she prepared her answer. The new Hokage breathed new life into the office. The endless trinkets and figurines on the shelves have disappeared. The third's favorite ficus moved to the corner. And on the wall, messages of congratulations on accepting the posts from fellow Kages now occupied a prominent place. However, their masterpieces really deserved a place in the frame. Each letter began with traditional congratulations. The Tsuchikage refuted them and complained about young people who violate all the shinobi commandments at once. The Mizukage covered her hat with a juicy imprint of scarlet lipstick and invited her old friend to celebrate this event, perhaps even in the fog, where she would provide her faithful drinking companion with a warm welcome. Considering that she had the lava genome, there was no point in doubting the woman's words. The Raikage simply crossed out the first lines and swore in a friendly manner at his opponent, whom he still could not forgive for his damaged hands. Instead of the one who died at the hands of Orochimaru, the Kazekage has unsubscribed from the Council of Elders. In Suna they still could not choose a new head. As far as Naruto knew, the Senju responded in the same style. In addition to poisoning and bruises, there are all the signs of sensitive brain overload. Apparently, too much use of the Sharingan had an effect. And also, he is going blind, too quickly for his young age. In the rest, I found traces of genjutsu. However, the consequences were quickly neutralized. Tsunade peered at the sheets of paper laid out in front of her. I think Itachi was the last one to remain conscious. He helped his own people, hence the brain overload. The genjutsu itself cannot harm such a master, but if he had to remove it from the others. The report of Hatake Kakashi speaks about the correctness of my hypothesis. They found the squad inside the protective barrier. A very specific barrier. The woman raised her eyebrow expressively. Naruto blushed slightly. I made several scrolls for Itachi. Yes, just in case. But what are we going to do about his blindness? She returned again to the topic that worried her. You can't leave everything like this. You can't, Tsunade agreed. And I already talked to Fugaku. Due to clan dojutsu, an eye transplant from a donor is needed. Sure sway? We checked, it doesn't fit. The closest option is Sasuke. But he is still too small. His father and I agreed to carry out the operation in a year and a half. By the end of this period, both brothers will achieve the desired state. Do not worry, everything will be fine. This is what I promise you as a grandmother. The Hokage smiled widely. And Naruto beamed in response. Itachi slowly emerged from the intoxicating haze with the taste of herbs, iron and salt. Through the endless burning pain, the warmth of the sun began to break through, like flowers from under the snow. A familiar voice persuaded me to be patient a little longer, just a little bit. And the light smell of cherries and the sea brought with it calm. He fell into a peaceful, dreamless sleep. The bright light hurt my eyes. I felt a slight weakness in my body, and there was no trace of pain left. He was in a ward at a Konoha hospital. The summer wind blew in through the half-open window and carried the smell of wildflowers standing in a vase on the bedside table. There were also large, ripe, juicy tomatoes and a plate of dango in a sweet sauce. Itachi turned his head towards a slight rustling sound coming from the other side. Naruto, in a light dress, with a braid up to her hip, was installing and calculating something, silently whispering under her breath. Her lips moved as she took down the instrument readings. So funny, sweet. Homemade. Dear our own. Have you woken up yet? Welcome back, Datebeo. She flushed with joy, noticing his awakening. And she gently hugged her neck. Warm strands slid over bare skin. Naked? Itachi focused on his feelings. Not only was he lying naked under the blanket, but a precious gift had disappeared from his neck. Neru, who undressed me? He asked carefully. The voice is hoarse after a long silence. How long have I been here? This is your second day here. And I undressed you. Is something wrong, Datebeo? The girl was surprised. Understanding dawned on her face. She rummaged in the pocket of her dress and handed him the chain. You squeezed it in your hand and didn't want to let go. I had to take desperate measures. She laughed. The gift fell on his neck again. Itachi calmed down, feeling the usual heaviness. Sasuke, gloomy as a cloud, appeared on the threshold. "What did you do to my brother, dope?" he growled, closing the door behind him. He carefully examined Itachi, whom Naruto sat down with pillows under his back. He turned his stern gaze to his friend, but the elder Uchiha noticed sparks of laughter in Ototo's eyes. "You won't believe it!" Naruto didn't even think about hiding her amusement. "Cured him. So he will live?" Sasuke was very naturally horrified. "Yeah, date Bayo. And if possible, happily ever after." "What should I do?" If not for the upbringing of the clan, the guy would have grabbed his head. The girl burst into tears. Itachi also couldn't resist and chuckled at the one-man show. Sasuke got nervous, and now he's letting out the tension. Surely he did not leave the chamber, scaring everyone away with the stone face of a perfect Uchiha. "You can eat my tomatoes as a consolation, Ototo." Itachi waved towards the bedside table. "Just leave me the dango." "You still can't," Sasuke said vindicatively, biting into a ripe vegetable. Thick juice splashed and flowed down my chin, and the aroma of a juicy, sun-warmed tomato filled the air. Itachi swallowed his saliva. "Until the attending physician allows it." "Who is the attending physician? Maybe I can negotiate with him?" There was a strong desire in the voice to quickly taste the sweets. "I am a doctor." Naruto waved her hand. "And yes, I don't allow you dango yet. We are now cleansing your body, don't interfere with the drug's effect. Otherwise, you'll be stuck here indefinitely." Itachi sighed heavily and leaned back on the pillows. On the one hand, the diet, but on the other, his attending physician. The mind sadly reminded that the girl had already seen him naked. And apparently, she didn't like it, since she doesn't even feel embarrassed or blush, as Kunoichi usually did during training and assignments when circumstances forced them to undress. "I'll call Tsunade Bie-chan, she wanted to talk to you." Naruto left, and Itachi walked her out, caressing her golden locks with his eyes. "She saved your life, literally pulled you out of the other world," Sasuke shared. "And I didn't leave your side all these days. I spent the night here, in the staff room. Even Hokage-sama and I could not drive her out. But if you want reciprocity, it's better for you to admit it head-on, and I-san. Uzumaki is such a dope that she absolutely does not understand hints." Itachi didn't have time to answer. Tsunade entered Senju. He heard about a broken drunkard, a loser in the game and love, but opposite him stood the Hokage of the hidden village, the strongest shinobi, a brilliant physician. You could feel the intelligence, will, and breed of an ancient clan in her. And she looked with interest, without the hostility expected from a Senju representative. "Itachi-kun, I want you to tell me the details of the mission." "Yes, Tsunade-sama. We managed to infiltrate Orochimaru's lair in sound, although it was heavily guarded by shinobi modified by the cursed seal. What he did to them, they are like demons, they do not know fatigue and mercy. However, the duration of the seal is limited and leads to catastrophic consequences. Inside we were immediately attacked by a strange orange gas. I felt in him." Itachi briefly glanced at Uzumaki standing behind the Sannin. She nodded. "I felt the chakra of the nine-tailed fox demon in it. We managed to move forward, despite attempts to put genjutsu on the squad. I removed the consequences of the technique from my comrades. In one of the halls we found a cage with a boy from whom the chakra of the nine-tails emanated. As far as I understand, during the fox's attack on Konoha, some of the released chakra was locked in the body of an infant, a boy from the monastery. He was then kidnapped by Orochimaru for his experiments. By that time, reinforcements had arrived to the enemy, and we had to leave. We made it outside, where I activated the barrier before the poison took effect." "What happened to that boy?" "He died." Not a single muscle twitched, not a single line betrayed Itachi's emotions. The man was not going to admit that it was he who killed that boy. His very existence could harm not only Naruto, but the entire village. The Akatsuki, whom Ototo mentioned, could have taken advantage of this. Apparently, Tsunade read the answer between the lines. She nodded and stood up. Very good, rest, Itachi-kun. I'm sorry, please resolve the issue, Tsunade-sama. What are you planning to do next? The woman turned her head slightly, already standing at the door. I'll send another detachment there. It's time erase this place from the face land.